So that's what I'm saying about, like, being willing to be, like, quote, unquote, "controversial." Like, you and I don't think it's controversial, but when you're a nonprofit and you have a board and maybe they're a bit more conservative and they're like, "No, no, no, we don't touch all that stuff." It's like, "I don't know, man. I think you should talk about this because that's what's on everyone else's mind, and you look like you have your head in the sand if you're not willing to go there." And are you going to maybe upset a couple of people? Maybe, but they're not your people anyways then. What you're gonna do is reinforce your community, and they're gonna double down even stronger for you and be like, "Hell yeah, I support them."
Hi, friends. Ever wondered how you could turn your big ideas into results? Together, let's reimagine a better sector, tackle systemic issues, and yes, raise some serious cash. Welcome back to The Small Nonprofit, the podcast where your passion meets action. Hello, hello. Today we're going to be talking about how to build your email list to make sure that you're not bleeding contacts. I have an amazing expert for you today, but before that, if you're new here, my name is Maria Rio. I'm a fundraising expert with over 10 years of experience, and I'm on a mission to make sure that you get more money with less stress. Joining me today is Jess. Hi, Jess.
Hello, my friend.
Jess, for people who might not know you, who are you? What do you do?
Yes. Hi, everyone. It's so fun to be here. My name's Jess Campbell. I'm the founder of Out in the Boons, and I help nonprofits discover new donors in their email lists.
I feel like a lot of small nonprofits surprise me with how little emails they actually have. Like some of my new clients, I'll ask them like, "How many emails do you have?" And even if they've been around for like 30 years, they have 200 names. Do you find that as common as well?
I've not only find that common, but I find even more common the rate of growth is in the negative numbers. And what I mean by that is that there's been no attention given to refilling the bucket. And I get it on one hand because we know how valuable and important retention is in our industry, right? We all know the saying, it costs way less to keep a donor than it is to go get a new donor. But the truth is people unsubscribe, people switch jobs, people's emails bounce, and you're losing people regardless of the content you put out. And so if you're not being really thoughtful, intentional, and strategic about refilling that bucket, you're going to wake up one day and have zero people on your email list.
And that's true. I feel like sometimes people get access to emails through events only. Like that's their only list building initiative, and they don't have any other like lead generators or webinars or any idea of how to go about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're posting on social media aimlessly without knowing who their target audience is, how that plugs into their funnel of getting people from social media to your email list and then
Mhm.
from email list to donor. Oh, God, it's a little bit of a bad cycle for many nonprofits.
Yeah, I guess to just break it down for folks because you might have people listening and they're like, "But why should I send emails?" Or "My inbox is overflowing. I don't want another email. Why would they want another email in their inbox?" And I always tell people, number one, you are not your subscriber. Just because your inbox is overflowing or you don't want to read bad emails, which by the way, no one wants to read, doesn't mean your subscriber is that way. Number two, email marketing is a gajillion times. I think it's actually like 9 or 10 times, if not more, maybe it's like 13 now, more successful than social media. So if you have to choose one, why aren't you choosing the one that works? Only 5 to 6% of your social media audience is even seeing your content versus an email. It might be more in like 40 or 50%. People also tend to click and take action. People use their email as a to-do list. And so it's just a lot more likely that someone is going to engage with an email than across social media, which I call drive-by engagement. People are scrolling with their thumb. And they might see something that catches their eye. They might read it. They might double tap. But the likelihood and the effort it's going to take them to go to the link in the profile, to click the thing, to then find the donate, it's just a lot. And it's just way more effective to send a similar type of communication, but over email and see results. I wanna just demystify that email marketing doesn't work. I think the difference is really between good emails versus bad emails and unengaged lists versus engaged lists, because not all things are created equal.
Okay, I need to get some definitions for that. So, what is an unengaged list? How do you know the list as a whole is unengaged?
Yes. So there's a lot of research and reports. I'm not sponsored by this CRM in any way, but Neon One released a email report 2023, I think it was. And they have some really great baselines if you're like, are we underperforming? Are we overperforming? And if your email, like they have a section in their report where if you have 1,000 subscribers or less, your open rate should average around this. And if you have 1,000 subscribers or more, it should be around that. Same for click through rates, unsubscribe rates. So it's a free report. I really encourage people to go check that one out. But I would say in general, if you have, let's call it 1,000 subscribers and your email open rates are, gosh, less than 35, 32%, people are not opening your emails, which means maybe you just need to work on your subject lines. Maybe your subject lines are too boring. What I would actually look at even more closely than open rate, though, is the click through rate and the reply rate. So, are people actually clicking on the content? If you have only like a 0.05% click through rate, that's really low. I would be aiming for something in like the 1.5, 2.5 range. Anything above 3 is considered really great. Now, this is all within the context of over the last few years, Apple specifically has changed their metrics on email. So if you have an iPhone and you have the email app on your iPhone, that will count as an open regardless of people actually opening it, which is why email open rates are a little funky. And now in certain email tools, like I know in MailChimp, there's actually a button that you can click to get rid of that filter so you can see the true number of people who are opening and clicking your email. But I would say anything below 30% is considered unengaged. Anything less than like 1% click through rate is also pretty unengaged. Another thing I do with my clients is I will run a report. I will pull a report and say who has opened 0 emails in the last 6 months or 12 months. And if that number is 300 people, if that number is 1,800 people, then I will then put them through a re-engagement sequence to try and really motivate them to open and click. It usually yields less than 10%, which just goes to show that these people are pretty much dead weight and it's time to scrub them out.
I love that you also are cleaning the list yourself. Like you're not just waiting for them to unsubscribe themselves.
No, they're never gonna do that.
But why are you doing it?
Why am I doing it? Okay, let's use this as an example. Let's say you have 1,000 people on your email list, but 500 of them have opened 0 emails in the last 12 months. So half of your email list is not engaged. And here you are trying to send an appeal email. It's Giving Tuesday. And you're like, oh my gosh, only 15% of people open. That's not really a good measurement of the success or capability of that specific email because half of your list is unengaged. So if you actually ran those numbers against only the 500 people that should be getting the email, maybe your open rate is actually like 45%. And then you're like, okay, that's actually, it wasn't a bad email. Maybe we could just work on our call to action a little bit, or maybe we could just work on our subject line a little bit. But when you're running emails and you're looking at the data against an unengaged list, it's just giving you false numbers. And so you're not able to make strategic communication decisions because the numbers are off.
So something that I was thinking was like a lot of organizations, they feel like they don't know what to say in an email, that they don't understand what the donor wants to hear. And I don't know if this is because they don't understand who their donors are or who their audience is, or they just haven't found their ideal messaging. But what do you usually send out for your nonprofit clients on behalf of them?
Yeah. What I see a lot of organizations do is what I call billboard marketing, which is very like, come to this event, check out this new board member. We just hired this new person. Here's this thing we did last Sunday. And that communication is fine, but it's not content that people are desperate to read. And we want our email subscribers looking forward to our email. And so what I send on behalf of our clients is more thought leadership type of content. And so I'm having conversations with my nonprofit leaders around things like, what kept you up at night? What was the fight that the board members had at the last meeting because no one could agree on it? What's a challenge? What's something that motivated you to go to work this week? And it's more kind of like a diary, so to speak, or an inside look around the leaders of the organization to provide a level of vulnerability, information, inspiration, education. And we do this on a weekly basis, which I'm sure some of your folks listening are like, holy guacamole, that is way too many emails. And the truth is, it's not. When you're competing in the inbox with the Amazons of the world or the Barnes and Nobles of the world, these companies are sending emails every single day, if not twice or multiple times a day. And even though you are likely to never have the same marketing budget as these huge Fortune 500 companies, the subscriber doesn't differentiate, right? Like they still notice who's in their inbox and who isn't. And so I like a weekly cadence so that when it comes time to actually fundraise, when you're sending somewhere between like 7, 14, upwards of 21 emails in a month, people aren't shocked at the volume. But the difference is high quality email. So we really try and keep our emails engaging and fun. We like to have a little clickable section, I like to call, where it's a roundup of everything from like TikToks we find that are related to the work, or news articles or podcast recordings. Sometimes we'll put a little like question quiz, a did you know section. The emails that are really great really stand out. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for my client, like 99% of nonprofits send really boring emails. So it's a huge way to differentiate between the standard, like July newsletter type of email, which I'm not even opening based on that subject line.
I agree 100%. Okay, so I have so many questions now that are coming to mind. They're just popping off. So I don't know if this is going to be like coherent in the order, but
Rapid fire.
yes, rapid fire. But you're saying like leaders should be sending about one email a week. How much does AI come into play? Because if you're doing so many emails, maybe they're like, oh, I can use a shortcut, create my own custom GPT. Does that help or hinder the process? And how do EDs, like, do they draft the content? Do you draft it for them? Like, how do they manage it in their day-to-day workload?
Yeah, we do all the writing for them, and we spend a lot of time researching and getting really, really, really good at their tone, their voice, the way they speak. We have one client right now, for example, he's a young guy from the South. He would just never in his life say, Dear Jess, in an email. He just wouldn't. He would say, What up, Jess? And so even those little tiny things we really try to pay attention to. As far as I always joke, I have one skill and it's writing good emails fast. And so to date, I do not use AI for email writing, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. I think that there is a lot of use for someone who is less strong in content ideation, which is again not my issue, or strong writing skills to use AI. And so yes, you can totally train a GPT and just go back and forth with it. Like, this is the theme I want to write about. This is the article I want to thought leadership about. This is whatever. And over time, that will just get better and better. I will warn people, you are definitely going to have to do some copy editing because you do not want to sound like a robot. And just as I mentioned earlier, you really want to get the words you would say right. And that's going to be different for every single leader. But the job of my team, so we're a done for you, take it off your plate kind of agency. And so we do everything from conceptualize the next coming email as part of a larger strategy towards a fundraising goal. So, for example, with some of our clients, we're doing like short back to school type of fundraising, and the warm up is all about that. So, it's telling stories of students who are maybe like preparing their backpacks, or we've been doing panel discussions around like what students are looking forward to in their next coming school year, or we're talking about how can you reimagine education in the United States. We're talking about all these things, even though the nonprofit does other things, we're putting those to the side and talking about this one kind of pillar as then we prepare to ask people to support that pillar. And then we'll go back into a cycle of more general communication around a whole bunch of different stuff. And then we'll again transition as we prepare for end of year giving season, whatever pillar we decide to raise money for on behalf of that. We do it all though. We just draft and build and do. So I actually don't know if it's the best use of a nonprofit executive director, CEO, even director of development to be like writing thought leadership emails. They're really important, but I think it's more important for you to do the thing I can't do, which is build relationships and sit across from people and ask them for money. And my work makes that job 1,000 times easier.
And I love how you're using emails to kind of like start a conversation, not just like, here's what I think. Bye. See you next week. But you're really looking for that engagement and those replies, which is kind of interesting because the ED might be like, oh, I didn't write this. I don't know, right? Like you're building a relationship on their behalf or on the behalf of the organization. But what are your kind of best tips to get people to reply, to get them to engage?
Mm. My best tip is to not be afraid to be a little spicy, a little controversial, a little like on the edge of like what a quote unquote typical ED would talk about versus not. For example, one of my clients right now, his email yesterday was just around philanthropy and the backwards way that the world of philanthropy works and how he did not get into this job to raise money, but oops, that's like his main job. And he was recently published talking about this specific topic. So we were able to link to the article and like allow people to go deeper. But I think for him, he's someone that is challenging the status quo of education in the United States. And so it makes sense for him to also challenge the way philanthropy works in the United States. And so it's like this nice through line. One thing that drives me absolutely bonkers is when nonprofits in general are unwilling to admit that like things are hard sometimes or they have a challenge or a weakness. I find that incredibly frustrating because that's not relatable. And what people are looking for, whether it's across emails or phone calls, relationships, even social media, is connection. And so we tell real life stories about real life things and we loop them back to the work that this organization is doing. So sometimes we'll even do fun things like a day in the life where I'll have my ED capture their day. It's like 6 a.m., alarm goes off. I put my walking shoes on and I go grab an iced coffee. And then there's a picture of the iced coffee. And then it's like by 8:45, I'm sitting at my desk and they show like a picture of their Gmail inbox. It's just like, oh my gosh, now I get you. Now I feel like I'm connected to you. And no other nonprofits are doing this. All these other nonprofits are sharing all this like boring shit, like forgive my language. And it's like, people don't want to read that. Of course, they're not opening your emails.
I feel like nonprofits fail to tap into the like parasocial relationship of it all, of the whole internet. I watch Midas Touch on YouTube.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I listen to the podcast.
they're a news channel, right? And I feel like I know the host, right? Like I know about his life, I know about his kid, I know about his two dogs, Taquito and Chiquito, right? And I know that he has a daughter and his partner is Spanish. So there's so many opportunities to like really be part of the conversation,
Mhm.
lead the conversation, and also like let people into your life in a way that is still keeping a boundary, but letting them feel like they know you and want to hear from you specifically. It differentiates you so much.
Absolutely. Or goodness, the way that the world is right now, and this isn't for every single nonprofit can do this, but for example, like my client in Los Angeles, for them not to have some sort of conversation around the issue of immigration right now would be actually mind-boggling. And so like the ED has a position, the organization has a position. They don't do anything in the immigration space, but they have students who are impacted by the lack of pathways to immigrating in the United States. And so for them to not talk about that would be actually bonkers. I have a different organization that plays a role in the maternal rights space. And so like Medicaid in the United States covers 40% of births. It's like critical to healthcare for women. And those are who is going to be impacted. So for them to not have a position on that is actually wackadoodle. So that's what I'm saying about, like, being willing to be, like, quote, unquote, "controversial." Like, you and I don't think it's controversial, but when you're a nonprofit and you have a board and maybe they're a bit more conservative and they're like, "No, no, no, we don't touch all that stuff." It's like, "I don't know, man. I think you should talk about this because that's what's on everyone else's mind, and you look like you have your head in the sand if you're not willing to go there." And are you going to maybe upset a couple of people? Maybe, but they're not your people anyways then. What you're gonna do is reinforce your community, and they're gonna double down even stronger for you and be like, "Hell yeah, I support them." And I think that that kind of communication is possible when you send something like a weekly newsletter versus like you get one shot in one monthly newsletter or worse, like a quarterly newsletter. It's like, yeah, that's like a lot to say in the one shot you send 1/4 of the year, you know?
How do you make sure that you're getting the right types of people onto the email list to begin with? Because some people like will buy a list or will put out like a lead generator that doesn't actually speak to the core of what they do. So what are those like values aligned ways that you can get more emails?
Yes. So a lot of people that come to me are doing it like maybe you're doing it, which I'm not judging anyone who's listening, but it's like what you said, Maria, at the beginning of you host a gala, you put all the people who attend the gala on your email list, and it's like that's the only way. We do what I call have tent pole moments, like tent, like you're going camping, tent pole moment. And we do that through things like hosting a town hall once or twice a year where the executive director and maybe someone from the program team is like, this is our 6-month update. These are our wins. These are our challenges. And this is what we're looking forward to in the next 6 months. And it's just a way for people who are already on their list to be informed. And it's a way to invite people who maybe are following along on social media to the price of admission is an email address. And it's a great way to follow up with people. It's a great way to follow up with the recording to people who can't attend. And, maybe you yield like 50 or 75 people at that. But if you do that a couple times a year, that's going to add up. Another thing we've started doing with some of our clients is these kind of panel discussions where we will invite other nonprofits in kind of an adjacent space. So all the panelists are now sharing on behalf of this panel. Maybe it's like how kids would reimagine education, or it's like 3 ways we've been able to meet with our elected officials to pass paid family leave, like whatever the thing is. And what's cool is that creates this like spider web of marketing because now 3 nonprofits are sharing it out to 3 lists, but there's a commonality between the audience members and it's providing something of value. It's education. It's just like any one of us wanting to attend our own webinar. So that tends to attract values aligned people. And then sometimes we get like silly and fun. So for my organization that focuses on maternal rights, when it was closer to COVID days and moms were just really like cooped up with their kiddos and needing to get out, we created a Spotify Rage playlist that was designed with like all these like banger songs. So if a mom just like needed to go on a run or sit in her car and jam or just like whatever, it was all these songs sourced by the community. And then we just put it up on Spotify and it's a free playlist for them to listen to. And that was a fun one. Sometimes we do things like quizzes. People love a personality quiz. And it's all a bit of an experiment because I will say it really depends on the organization. And when we find something that works, we tend to just recycle that over and over and over again.
That makes sense. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Exactly.
So basically, like if you have a large part of your list being not super active, your first step would be the reactivation campaign for sure, but kind of focus more on the building the list and reviving this list.
Yes. Otherwise, yeah, like I said before, you're just going to wake up and realize you have no list. And list growth is something that takes a bit of time. It's really difficult to list build in November and then try and ask those people for donations come Giving Tuesday in December. And so the sooner you can either start now, like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is today kind of thing. That way you can use the next 4 or so months to educate, entertain, inform your email subscribers with really, really good content that sets them up for the next natural step to be investing in your organization. That's just more difficult to do in like a 25 or less turnaround. And so it's not impossible. And I think that organizations should be list building year round. One of the things that we do that might week to week feel very, very, very minute, but we do this kind of loop method. So for our clients who we send thought leadership emails with, 24 hours before that email goes out, we actually post about it as a teaser on LinkedIn. And then we say, if you want to hear the story, if you want to finish this thought, if you want more information, make sure you sign up for our email list. And it yields anywhere from like, I don't know, I would say 5 to 7 new subscribers right now for our clients, which is like, oh, 5 to 7, like that's no big deal. But these are highly engaged people that want this content. And you do that every single week, that's hundreds of people. And it really, really, really makes a difference. So we're doing all these things at one time to both provide really high quality, valuable content that people want to read, coupled with highly engaged email subscribers. And the match is what really works.
Okay, so I want to ask you a question. How do you use donor data to inform the email collection strategies that you'll tackle? And I just want to give 2 quick examples. So, one was for a client we worked with, they run a festival, and a lot of the people come to the free events, but we have no idea how to track them. So, as an incentive, we did a 50-50 raffle where you give your email to purchase your tickets, and now we have 700 more emails, right?
Mhm.
And in my other example, we knew most of our donors are from Scarborough. So we created a Scarborough summer activity downloadable that parents could do with their kids because this organization also does youth facing work. So I would love to hear your examples like that.
Good. Your timing is perfect because I actually have a client right now that's about to go on like a 14 city bus tour. They have this huge bus, they've wrapped it, it's going all over the place, and it's the organization that is in maternal rights. And the goal is that this bus will interact with thousands of people over the next 3 or 4 months. And so similar to you and the festival, we have like QR codes set up so that we can invite people who want to be on our email list to join if they want to. And we have different ways to incentivize that, mostly through a membership. But what I would do with those folks specifically is I would put them through an onboarding sequence to make sure that they're actually engaging with those emails before just putting them on the master list. And the reason for that is we want people to feel really seen when they come to our email list. So instead of just being like, welcome to insert nonprofit name, we want to be like, welcome to insert nonprofit name. We'd love seeing you at the festival, or thanks for coming to the bus tour. Here's 1 or 2 things you can do to like go deeper. And then a couple days later, we want to reinforce that message or get them to reply to an email or click a button of some sort. And then another email, maybe to wrap it all up. And at the end of that sequence, if some of these people have not opened or clicked any email, it's like, let's not put them on the list. They are not engaging. Maybe they were just in a mood and they were like, yeah, I'll click and join everything right now. So that's how you make sure to get like the right people on the list. Um, and I think what your idea around I think you called it like an activity book or a summer activity book. I think that that's super duper smart. I think that that's great. But I would always do the same thing. Like the downloadable, it needs to go through a sequence first. And again, if those people aren't quite engaging, don't move them into the general list right away.
Awesome tips. Is there anything else that you think an executive director listening to this needs to know?
I would say the number one thing is I don't have any organization, I'm sure this is the same for you. Not one organization has ever come to me and I'm like, ooh, you're sending too many emails. Not once. Not ever. In fact, it's always the opposite. It's like, you haven't sent an email in how long? And I just find it so funny because even if they can find the space to post on social, where again, the data proves it underperforms email, they somehow will make time for that, but not for email. And I just really want to encourage folks who are maybe not sending at the frequency of a week that I'm recommending. Start by doing twice a month. Work your way up. It doesn't need to be like right now we send a quarterly email and tomorrow we start sending a weekly email. Like if you don't have a resource or a person like me to do the work for you, that is unrealistic that you're going to get to that. But in general, you're not sending enough email and it will serve you, your organization, and your fundraising goals to send more emails. So go forth.
And Jess, where can people find you if they want to continue the conversation?
Oh, that's so nice. My website is just outintheboons.me. That's out in the boons, like boonies with an S.me. And then I only hang out on LinkedIn these days. I'm just Jess Campbell.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Happy emailing.
And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. Definitely start building your email list as soon as possible if you haven't already. I've been thinking about this because our social media platforms are owned by the billionaires who are causing a lot of chaos over there, if you haven't noticed. So, really owning those emails is such a huge benefit. So, I hope that you take some of Jess's tips and go out and apply them. As always, if you want to see our lovely faces, you can do that over on YouTube. But that's it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, bye for now. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Small Nonprofit. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with our guests directly or find me on LinkedIn. Let's keep moving money to mission and prioritizing our well-being. Bye for now.